Pra kjo është nga kishat e braktisura për të cilat po flisje.
Ishte një nga të parat që kam zbuluar pasi vendosa të udhtoj në këmbë, veçanërisht për të bërë fotografi të kësaj zone, sepse shumë prej tyre janë tashmë të harruar dhe është thuajse e pamundur të gjesh vendodhjen e saktë në hartë. Rezultoi e vështirë, madje edhe për banorët vendas që t'i gjenin ato, dhe disa prej tyre ishin goxha larg, apo shumë lart si distancë nga fshatrat.
Pra edhe për vendasit ishin të vështira për t'u gjetur?
Po, e vërtet.
Wandrille Potez, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being here. Your visit, your stay in Albania is a particular one, but before jumping into that, I need to convey a couple of things about you, who you are and what you're doing. I shall read it. I just hope I will not ruin your beautiful language.
Don't worry.
With my English version of it. So you were born in Poissy?
In Poissy.
Poissy,
yes.
In 1996, so it makes you 29, 30, 29?
Yes.
And you completed CAGNE, which is in a way a French preparatory school in humanities for excellent students. At least that's what Google told me.
Good one, but it's enough.
And then you jumped into your research, which was divided between the Practical School of Advanced Studies and Paris Diderot University.
Yes.
Because one is not enough. You need
yes, because I was afraid to choose. So
you made both.
That's why I chose both.
Oh, God.
Yes.
And then that experience took you to Germany. This was very interesting because you became interested in the presence of the Orient in the decor of the 18th century Saxon art. And then you have a master's degree in comparative history and civilization. And from there you worked as a researcher at the research center of the Palace of Versailles, which is, I think, speaks for itself. And from there, the National Monuments Center entrusted you with a curatorial assignment in partnership with the Museum of Decorative Arts in Dresden. So back to Germany. So
yes.
Between 2019 and 2023, you wrote regularly for the art newspaper and made numerous trips to the Balkans. So there starts your Balkan story then.
Yes, it was together at the beginning, but it wins finally.
So you chose photography as a combination with what you were already committing yourself, which was basically writing. And you traveled by foot or bicycle, and in 2024 you had your first exhibition, Horizontier?
Yes.
Immersions in Albania, and then you wrote in the magazine Balkanism, and this is important, you drew attention to the fate of these forgotten Byzantine or post-Byzantine churches, which you described also as fragile.
Exactly. That's why I chose also photography to try to protect them.
But then these churches were added to the World Monuments Fund 2025 watch list. So it actually had an impact, which is in a way immediate. It's just a 1 year's time.
I hope, but we have to see the result first. But
and they're subject of an exhibition in September the same year in the nave of the College of Bernardine in Paris. And then you joined Villa 31 after a year's residency at Villa Marmottan, part of the Academy of Fine Arts. Can you explain first, so your residencies at Villa 31, which was used to be the residence of our late dictator. So now is an artistic residency, but it was a combination of efforts, coordination, networking with this other residency. How did it work?
With the previous residency? Oh.
So how did it work? I think your staying here is in cooperation with...
Yes, it's a special cooperation to bring photography in the Villa 31, and it's a new program during this third session, and it will be also for the future, so not only me, but every year they plan with an association who calls ora.në to bring at least 2 or 3 new photographers, in the villa, in parallel to the normal programmation from the Foundation Art Explorer. So it's a new partnership.
So it's a partnership is between 2 similar institutions that
Yes.
have this sort of exchange and cooperation.
Exactly. But Orama wants also to bring photography in the Balkan, because there is also this very special history with photography here in the Balkan area, with Marubi and all this very special link. So that's why my photographic style, very connected with the patrimonial photography, was interesting in this perspective for them, I think.
Your path moves from, let's say, very high institutional places such as the Palace of Versailles, and then to remote, time-forgotten churches in very deep areas of Albania where usually goats would roam and shepherds, but
Yes.
not, or hikers. And so what made you focus here, which you would not here in Albania in particular, but choosing this kind of exploration efforts into the depth and uncharted territories, which you wouldn't find in higher institutions such as Versailles?
I think it's the same move. Like, even in Versailles, I want to see the most precious or hidden room, and it's a kind of curiosity, I think. I see no contradiction now between these very famous places and quite unknown in Western Europe. But for Albania, it was also by chance, because I discovered the country during a bike trip at the beginning in 2017. And I was extremely enthusiastic, but also because of my taste for patrimonial, for heritage, like for beautiful places, not only hidden one, but interesting one, I think. So I see no difference of level between Versailles and the churches in Albania. For me, it's the same thing.
So just to make a pun of it, a joke, say you see beauty everywhere.
I'm trying to find it, yes.
On the other hand, starting from your interest in finding the Orient in this Saxon 18th century decor, how did it help you, or in a way, did it influence or shape your understanding and appreciation for later adventures, if we may call them like that, including this Byzantine exploration of churches in the Balkans?
I think it was connected with my thinking about Orientalism, to fight it in a way. Because in Germany, I worked on this idea to explain that finally the interest of Saxony for Orient was not a will to dominate Orient, but in fact it was because they admire it a lot that they wanted to have this kind of power from outside to defend our power in front of the Emperor of Austria, like of the German Empire. So it changed a bit the perspective, and because it becomes completely different during the 19th century, but at the beginning of the 18th century, there is this very strange other perspective, like interest as an admiration and not a will of domination. And I wanted also to change the view on Albania thanks to this very special heritage, because usually in France it's considered as only a Muslim country, an Oriental one, and it was interesting for me to show that it's a part of the European history, also in the medieval era and later, so forever, since ever. So that's why I wanted also to see Albania to change my mind about all this prejudice of a very potentially dangerous country, and it was important for me to explain that there is also very common things for European mind, and usually French people are very surprised to discover this kind of churches in Albania, because they think, they are persuaded that it's only in Greece or in Italy. So it's also funny for me to bring Albania on another way, even for history of art.
It's funny in a way because first is the skewed view of Albania, which many in the West have, but on the other hand, that skewed view implies other sins: Muslim, bad; Oriental, bad. Are they even white? Bad. So all these things, which are in a way, so as you, we, others try to shed light on the true realities of a space. On the other hand, and show that, which is a multicultural, multi-religious country in this perspective, especially in history right now, we've become more materialist, of course, like the rest of our European club where we want to jump in. But these are not sins per se. These are not bad things, but it's still very interesting that you explore these hidden realities in a way frozen in time, at least in spirit. But I have a question. Since these churches, these monuments, now some of them have become, in a way, more officially recognized as monuments, being in the watch list of endangered ones. Nobody has went there, and no rituals in a formal sense. The liturgy was not there for quite a while, even, I don't know, centuries maybe, or at least decades, and they are forgotten in a way. Do you still find conceptually or in any other form still a presence of the sacred there?
Yes, for sure. I'm trying to show it through photography, but yes, and not only human life, but also life from the nature, because there is now many animals inside, like bats and very rare one, and birds and snakes. So I think it's also beautiful to see that even they are abandoned sometimes, they stay a kind of refuge for all the species. And also there is some special attention from the villager, for example, to maintain these churches as comfortable places in a way. They bring some water, they bring also some sweeties sometimes, and even there is nobody inside, but there is still this idea to conserve a church as a house, as a sacred one. So it's very useful for me because water helps when I'm alone. And I see it very regularly, even it's completely isolated and quite abandoned.
So in a way there is still a slow, very minute maybe, but there is still a little pilgrimage going on. So that's why the locals put some
and for sure they bring also some clothes sometimes, like a shirt, to have better health probably, or some socks also very regularly, and they put it on the ruins of the iconostasis. And I'm trying also to document this kind of attentions or ritual, because it's the last liturgy inside, in a way. There is also small, like modern icons or coins. I see, thanks these rare elements, that there is still life inside, even it's not so visible at the first sight.
You use photography not just as a tool, as a means of documentation, but also as a form of trying to preserve and raise awareness on these fragile realities. So in a way that encompasses, I'd say, several spheres. There is this research documentation, there is this advocacy approach, but there is also an artistic expression. So this is one may say, from a very crude and simplistic point of view, that you have at least three realities merging with one another. How do you manage that? Manage it, yes.
Like, I'm formerly an historian of art, so for sure my eyes are the eyes of the historian. So I have also this interest for these places because I find them historically interesting, but at the same time, I see it just only beautiful without any consideration for what I'm doing here. I just want to enjoy sometimes. But after, I know that the photographs I take could be useful for some like restoration works. So I'm trying to find the good balance between just documentation and my own artistic way. But both are connected with the will of I want to restitute what I see to Albania. So that's why I want also to change this perspective of Orientalism. I don't see these churches just to take them as beautiful images and bring it back in France to make just a beautiful book and speak with foreigner about these beautiful hidden gems. I would. That's why I'm here in a residency. I want to bring this heritage to Albanians because it's very unknown here too, because of the history. And I'm trying with this photography to connect the population, the village, the society again with this kind of lost part of their own heritage. The religious one, but not only religious, it's something more general. So I'm trying to find this balance with my own style between both, but with the same will of connection.
It is true, not only I haven't been on any of those locations, those churches, monuments, but I didn't even know they existed. So what you're saying is so true. Even us, the locals, weren't aware of those. If I may show some of the photographs you shared with me, which are part of your exhibition at Villa 31. The exhibition, I think it's over, is still open?
It's over, sadly, now.
So, yes, we can show the photographs nonetheless, and we're going to put them also on full screen later.
I hope to organize a bigger one next year, but we have to work.
Oh, really?
That'd
be
hope,
great.
Yes. We think about it.
A lot of people, of course, including myself, that's why we're having this conversation, but other people told me that they really liked your
but also
exhibition.
because of the surprise to discover new places in like your own country. And it's a great joy for me to see that this part of my project works in a way.
So the very first one that I noticed is this very idyllic, I shall call it, with goats roaming in this very rugged background with trees and the other. But all the scenery is so virgin, so untouched. It looks like it's from another era.
But it's very realistic. I swear, like it's very close to the reality, and that's why I have also this interest, like in Albania, not only in this.
I'm not implying you doctored the photo. No, absolutely. I'm just saying the shot.
Yes,
it really captures that spirit of being somewhere else. That maybe it's a fable. It's part like it was a page torn from a book that then transformed itself in a photograph.
That's how I see it when I travel through it. So that's why I say that it's realistic, because it's not just it's a general feeling, like very, very deep and mysterious and beautiful, I think.
But that's interesting, because on one way you say it's realistic, and then you also vow that that's how you see it.
Yes.
So in a way, it may both into that greater mantra of us producing reality, which to a certain degree one may say, oh, that's conceptual, it's a poetic way of framing it. But then you see it, and it's solid, and it is realistic.
Yes.
So, but it's your view of the world.
Yes.
And this other one, this is one of those churches that you were talking about.
It was one of the first one I discovered when I decided to go by foot, especially to take photographs of this area, because many of them, that's why they are still very unknown, were at this time not precise yet on the map, even on Google Maps. So it was quite difficult even for local to find them. And some of them are also quite high from the villages, not this
so
one.
Even for the locals,
yes,
the ones
they never,
living there, were difficult to find.
In 2 churches in this area, they are going there once a year for the festivities of the village. But for other one, we need sometimes more than 2 hours and 30 minutes to go there. So just one way. So that's why it's usually empty.
So it means these monuments were built at a time when walking
Yes.
Was the main means of transportation.
Like it's also a part of my curiosity to think about the life there before, because when it's very isolated, I think that it was also like this before. So it's quite strange to imagine a life with horses to go up, but it's very also very.
But
easy area
even
to
this one, I don't know what this was, a church or a monastery.
Yes, it's a monastery church
It's a monastery church.
of Ravenna up to Gorangsea, above Gorangsea.
So in order for you to see this, to find this nowadays, you have to be on top of one of these mountains surrounding it. So that's the only way, if you don't know exactly where it is.
Yes, and this is also part of the very special architecture, because it's quite invisible from the bottom of the valley, but you discover it just in front of it when you go up. So it's at all the time a kind of surprise. And it's also a part of the joy as a photographer to have this nice surprise, even especially when you have no idea before.
And one can see in your exhibition photographs even the interior of these places. And in some of them, there are these clothes, you were telling me, that people live there, so they, in a way, to say it crudely, they get the good energy, this more metaphysical presence, so when they wear them, they may get healed and other things.
It's a cave church of next to Sarrakinicht.
This one?
Yes, so it's a complete built in the cliff.
Mm-hmm. And this other one, which I found quite interesting. So these almost makeshift structures are holding the ceiling and the.
Yes, it was like former iconostasis of the church of Spilé, so the same monastery next to Sarrakinicht. And there is good news now, because since this week the church is restored and reopened.
Really?
Yes, a local directorate for cultural heritage.
So it's you can just go there now.
Yes, now this very special condition is only visible on my photographs.
You may feel very happy and proud to have contributed to this.
I think it's like it's not only because of me. It was like a good energy between Ardis Duca, who is in charge of this heritage there, and also a new interest around. But
it's a contribution still.
Yes, it's kind of contribution, yes. But it's very impressive for me. I saw some new photographs of the church just yesterday, and it's completely different, because now the frescoes are quite washed up, like quite new with more colors. So it's a completely different atmosphere inside. So I want to come back
and see how it before and after, and you can have some nice documentation.
Yes, to compare.
And you also have some other photographs, which in sometimes they are more context oriented, or let's say outer areas, but sometimes they also capture details, like such as the head of this horse. Where was this?
It's also in Duvian, so it's a mark of the like difficult past also in Albania, because many frescoes are damaged, sometimes voluntary, and I would protect these marks because it speaks also about the history of the churches and of the country in a way. So for me, it's very important to document and protect it as a proof of, as a reflection also on our link between the heritage, to think about and to realize that it's very fragile. So every decades, this vision of it can change because of like political reasons or whatever. So, and for the like more landscape perspective, I would bring the idea of the protection of the landscape also in Albania, like to not protect the stones only, but a context, because it's part of the heritage. So it's very important to have this idea to not like build, this idea of consequences of new buildings in some beautiful areas as in the Dream Valley.
That's very important what you just said, to protect not only stones but context.
Yes, even the human one.
Can you please elaborate a bit into that and how it should be done, what it is and how it should work?
For me, heritage is like global thing, and it's impossible to think it just with monuments. It's a very beautiful and interesting mix between the landscape, what is a very important thing, I think, but also with people, because take care of these churches, for example, in the Dream Valley, is also take care to the people in the villages, because they need to have a good reason to stay in the village, because the life is quite hard there, and there is a kind of demographical crisis there. So if it's empty, it's not. If the churches are empty, it's not only because there is no more religious interest, but it's more because there is nobody in the village. So if we can keep some attention on the churches, it could also change the way of life and protect the traditional way of life in this area, not only in the churches, but in the geographical context around. And because some big international protection for heritage as UNESCO in this area are only focused on Gjirokastër, but it's a big problem for the land around, because some visitors think interesting things are only in Gjirokastër, and very few of them tourists have the idea to go outside of the city to discover the land, the countryside.
Yes, I mean there are wonderful things in a lot of places. And,
yes.
Gjirokastër in this regard overshadows them. It kind of eclipses the rest.
That's why in this area, this idea of context is so precious, because there is a very strange connection between sheep's area, but also archaeological sites, beautiful one as Antigonea, Adrianopolis, very quite impressive one. Also not because of the stones, but because of the landscape around, because of the localization of the stones. So, and it's very connected with the churches. Some churches are built with the stones from the archaeological sites. So it's also a vision of the continuity of history. And it's very visible in Albania. So it's also, for the photography, a huge part of my interest there.
For the untrained mind, including myself, usually the common view of history is rather diminutive, reductionist, and in a way also very naive. For instance, you have this era here is prehistoric, whatever that means, and then you have antiquity. So there is these steps that you don't see that inside them there is this continuity, and so history is not a bunch of things you put together chronologically. It's actually one bigger thing that communicates and works.
Sure. Especially in Albania. That's why in my bigger project, I'm trying to document this kind of feeling of the porosity between different eras in the landscape or in some special places like around Prespa, because sometimes we don't know if this part of an old wall is from the before Christ or just from the Ottoman era or just from the 50s.
They're so intermingled.
Yes, it's the same material, same way of building, and I think this continuity and is very, very special and very beautiful. So some roads, sometimes like Stones Road, could be antique or from the end of the 19th century. You don't know. And now all these things are on the point to disappear because of the new infrastructures, new roads, and it's sometimes very useful and very important to build it. But that's why I don't want to work only in a nostalgic perspective, but I'm trying to document it because I see that it changes and it disappears.
So even from a functional point of view, in cooperation with Albanian and even international institutions, it can function for them to be included into maps, guided tours, and magazines, specialized ones, and similar publications and efforts, I think, may work or not.
Also to change the narrative around tourism in Albania, because like I see that usually we think or speak about it very badly as a danger, like for the coast, and it is actually. But for many other places, as like in this church, with these churches in the Drino Valley, the lack of tourism is also a big problem. So it's also a lack of money for the villages. So we could bring a new idea of how the tourism could help if we respect the areas. So I think it's difficult to think to talk about sustainable tourism because usually it's only a marketing thing and it doesn't work. But we can try to find a new way, like to give the idea to go to these churches, for example, without any roads. So if it's only possible to go by foot, go by foot. Like even it's difficult.
There are people who love that and they are in for an adventure. And
Yes.
You have this long journey which can have its own degree of relative minor risk as well. And they sweat and go through mountains and valleys in the end. Oh, look there, God.
Yes, and they will adore it, I think. Because
But I see that a couple of also aesthetical observations, if I may. So, of course, what immediately gives to the eye is the fact that your photographs have a strong contrast and they are black and white.
yes, yes. I think it's like for different reasons. It's also very connected with the tradition of heritage photography. So, like in France, there is this kind of heliographic tradition, like from the mission, organized in the 19th century to document, especially the religious heritage. When after the French Revolution, 50 years later, many churches were in very bad conditions. So, like, it's also quite similar to Albania after the communist regime. So. The state order sent many photographers in the countryside to document the ruined church everywhere, and I grew up as an historian of art with this kind of beautiful old photographs, and especially on churches with this very deep black and white. So I think it's why also I chose this special aesthetic. But in Albania, it's also to protect the idea of distance or mystery around the churches. And because usually when there is an interesting place, it's presented in the media or in social media, especially with very strong colors and a very like artificial one in a way, because of marketing will to promote the idea of tourism. And I want to speak about the churches, but I don't want to turn it in a touristical destination only. So it have to stay as a sacred place and as an isolated one. So the black and white for me is also a good way to find this distance and broke a bit this local current aesthetic of adventure, of something sensational. I think we need now something more quiet sometimes and more more respectful, more discreet, and to change the approach of the beautiful areas. Like I'm trying to.
It's also very respectable, and considering that, as you were pointing out, nowadays consumerist view on things and destinations and even aesthetics. So there are a couple of places in Albania, at least that I know, and one of them is where I'm living now, which is an area called Pazari, the new bazaar.
Yes.
When they remade it, because it was scant and everything, so they made it more, let's say, livable in a way. They made it on purpose, also Instagrammable. That was part of the job. And that is quite, in a way, cynical. So something that would be inhabited by real people and crafts and vendors and even tourists, you know. So the way you render that piece is to look good on the digital side of things. And that's quite amazing. It's in a way dystopian. And I totally understand what you're trying to do here is to actually keep the sacred in place. And what you said, this is realistic. It's real. It's not a digital manifestation.
And yes, and sometimes, like, if you want to present it as something Instagrammable, you have to change the color, like, because if we speak about the churches, the first aspect of the frescoes abandoned. It's sometimes very gives a very hard feeling of something sad, or I want to show that it's beautiful, not only sad or abandoned. So that's why I'm trying to find this balance, and not bring this like violent idea of something about shame. Like, I don't want to speak about these churches to show that Albanians abandon it, because they didn't have the choice to abandon it. It's not their responsibility. It's perhaps the responsibility of the state in a certain way, but not of the villagers. And they took care of the churches. So I don't want to shame them with this wrong vision of the buildings. So, but I think this Instagram thing is a very important question, even for the vision of the protection later, because it's not enough to restore it, but if you restore it, to close the churches, because you think that Albanian locals are not able to take care of of this valuable heritage after, you condemn the monuments to a new abandonment later. Like, it will be impossible to speak about it, to show it, to open it after
But
the
how can you
restoration.
then protect that? Because the defacements of certain frescoes were real, and they were post 1991 when the communist regime collapsed here. So it means that people, the new democratic Albanian, went there, some very democratic Albanian, and defaced the faces of and other aspects of the frescoes, and some put their names there.
Yes, it was also before, during the Second World War, but it was also a reason of my stay in Albania to understand a bit the story of my subjects, like the story around. So I wanted to search in the library of Enver Hoxha to understand why he has this kind of crazy politics against religion. But so that's why I was also in the archives of the Ministry of Culture to find new, like, old views of the churches during the communist era, to understand when it was abandoned. And I realized, in fact, that they were quite protected at the same time during the communist regime, also probably because of the will of some people in charge in the Ministry of Culture, as Piero Tomo or Alexander Mexi. But it was very impressive for me to realize that despite the local stories around, it was not destroyed by communists, but it was abandoned after the 90s. So mainly, like, the buildings around the churches fall down during the 90s, or even at the beginning of the 21st century, sometimes very recently. And it was a complete surprise for me. I thought that it was in ruins probably since the 50s, but in fact, not at all. So
destruction happened after the collapse of the regime, which would stop, which would prohibit the religion, but after that one. And in a way, they are still very much endangered nowadays, some of them at least.
Yes, it's very paradoxal, but because like, in fact, they were definitely abandoned because of the collapse of the Ministry of Culture, in a way. So, and even when some very, like, important archaeologists were able to find a good way to protect it, but it was not the emergency at this time. So I can also understand why it was impossible to think about the churches when they had to think about, like, food in villages. So it's something like, now I think Albania changes for real. So that's why it's a time to think about it and to find, like, international helps or advice to find a good way to restore it.
But now we have entered this unstoppable force of progress mantra, which is that we must embrace progress at all costs. And it's not just philosophical. I'm almost quoting our government officials regarding that, from the Prime Minister and down, the chain of command. And so of course, preserving heritage is one of the true pillars of the government. But as you mentioned, during communist times, officials with very important contributions, such as Spiro Thomo and Alexander Mexi, for instance, and now you also mentioned some other persons, officials there, which are really well-meaning and vested in protecting this. Do you think it should not boil down to a few good men and women, but it should be a more institutional investment, very clear strategy, how to deal with this? Because even the question you made, shall we leave them open or closed if there is no guard there?
I think it's essential to keep it open.
Yes, because but how you do that?
Also, to think about a cooperation with the villagers, for example. If someone in the village, and it's already like that in a way, someone has a key. So if there is a number in the door of the church and the visitors can just call someone in the village to bring the key, it could be a very easy way to open it. But to think it with the local community, because for the moment it's impossible to think it like at the scale of the state or of the land. So even with this local perspective, I think we could change it a bit. And change at the same time the idea of protection, because everywhere when they want to protect it, like usually currently in Albania, they destroy it. Like we see it with this new terrible building built in the middle of the Vjosa Valley, and they pretend to build it to have a place to admire the view, but the building destroy not only the view, but all the natural area. So usually it's something very deeply installed in mind that if you want to take some attention of a places, you have to change it. You have to put some concrete around, to put some light during the night, and it
put a road. Why not a restaurant? And now, since we're developing tourism, why not develop the area? So we have this residency. It's a tiny one overlooking the hill, but then why not a resort?
It's a wrong idea of development, and if you want to protect it, you have to keep it like this, to make something safe, to conserve it, but don't change anything around. So, in this idea of progress is not. It's very difficult to connect it here with this idea of lack of change, like to conserve it like this and not to try to do something better.
There are segments within our decision-making ecosystem of the country which thoughts like this and people who would think like this, they'd call a fine labeling which really makes me smile is nostalgics.
Yes.
So, you're nostalgics. Progress is unstoppable.
But I'm not. I want to explain that this condition without any management is my idea of progress. And from Western Europe, we have to make some apologize to explain that our past way was wrong. And we did it also in France, like in the coast, in the western part, in the southern part. And we see now that it's a catastrophe for ecosystems, also for tourism, because now there is no more interest to go there if it's destroyed. So we can explain that it's a wrong way because we did it first. So we have also a responsibility to explain why it's wrong. And now many people want to change the perspective, even in France, to bring it back, to find nature, to change the way of life, to go out of the cities because of too much concrete. And this idea of décroissance, I don't know in English how it...
what was that?
Décroissance is the idea to go against progress in a way.
I see.
But to find another model
So in a way, against the stream, against the, the flow.
And for me, like traditional way of life in Albania is my idea of progress. It could be a model for Europe because it's so beautiful to see this local community who live in harmony with nature. I know that even without any idealization, I think the bad idea some local people have on their own conditions of life is not only about poverty, it's also about the projection from Western Europe of the way of their life, and of not only from Western Europe, but only from big cities in Albania. Because I heard many people speak about the countryside in Albania as Bangladesh, and I find it very scandalous because this idea like have a kind of success in mind of the local people, and it's also a way to destroy what is good in this way of life.
So this self-cynicism as well, that we worship that idol which we may know not, like Jim Morrison elegantly put it, the West is the best. And so we bought into that, and now it has become an idolatry, and even in cases, as you said, that you should learn from our past mistakes.
Yes, it's also because of us.
But we should learn from your past mistakes, but maybe the clock of people, the imagination, the culture, the media, we say media, everything, the pop culture and everything, maybe it stagnated at a certain point where mistakes were being made and under the travesty of progress. And what happened afterwards, kind of, we weren't paying attention very much. Maybe because internet happened and the social sphere, social channels and media happened, so everybody got distracted to understand, to keep in pace with the evolution of the so-called West ideals.
But this evolution was for me very, very impressive to see when I travel alone in the countryside to take some photographs. And thanks to this photographical work, I was able to completely change my mind on what I saw in France. Because when you are just in the grass in the countryside in Albania and there is so many insects around you, I just realized that it's normal, in fact. And if there is nothing around you in France, that's because we destroyed it before. Because of this management, for the same reasons, since the 30s. So I was next to the Prespa Lake once in a huge road in construction. And I realized that if I was surprised to see this kind of road in the natural area, it's just because in Albania it's new. But in France, I'm not surprised to see a road in the countryside. So I realized that suddenly, we destroy it also before in my own country. So Albania was a very good way to see what happens now and how we could think about the change differently. Also thanks to the communist era, because after this huge trouble, it was quite, for the natural side, quite protected in a way. So now it's a very new responsibility to keep safe certain places, as Prespa, as the Vjosa, as the lagoons, for example, because they are in these conditions thanks to the terrible history. So it's also our last chance to take an advantage of this difficult history, I think.
You also mentioned when we met and you made this very kind tour of your exhibition, you also mentioned that you noticed and documented some mingling or intertwining of, or at least influences of different styles and cultures, and even interreligious influences in terms of aesthetics and in these churches. Could you explain a bit how it works?
Yes, alors I saw in some churches that there is some influence, from the Ottoman era, from the Italian style, from the Latin church, and it's beautiful to see that the Albanian style in post-Byzantine architecture is usually I say it without being a specialist, but I have the impression to see a huge mix of these different influences, and I think it's beautiful to have this mirror of the society of the history in the valley, just in the stones, like in the churches. You see some windows sometimes are in a kind of Oriental style, but the bell tower is more in a Western style, and like the current borders are very new ideas, because even especially in the south of Albania, it was part of the Epirus, so it was the same painter in Greece as in Albania. So this like actual state of even like the vision of Albanian art by Albanians, sometimes it's a bit destroyed by this idea of border, because they think because it's in Albania that the frescoes are naive or quite regional in a bad way. But in fact, not at all. I discover like very precious frescoes, like from the 16th century, from the 17th, and it's a very, very precious testimony of the Balkan art, but also as a mix.
So the Balkans are also an ecosystem of their own,
yes,
which exists and flourished, at least in the past, beyond this the concept of nation states and the strict hard borders.
And also, yes, and we can see in all the country, from the north to the south, this variety of different buildings, like religious one, because of the variety of the religion, like the tekes and also the Catholic churches in the north, but which were very badly destroyed during the communist regime, and the Orthodox one in the south. So it could be from a different country. It's very impressive to see this huge variety in such a small country. So I think it's also my interest to find these different styles. Even in the Duino Valley, I photographed, like not for this exhibition, but also some Muslim heritage. And it's quite rare too, because traditionally there was not so many old mosques in this part. Like there were mainly inside the cities, but there is in Karditch, for example,
Karditch, yes.
a very, like it's now completely abandoned. There is perhaps still one family in the village, like in the ancient one, in the middle, next to the castle. But there is still in one part of the village a beautiful minaret, like the tower of the mosque, probably from the like 16th or 17th century.
But the mosque itself is not there?
Yes,
the minaret?
not there anymore.
Yes.
There is a new small one, a kind of very small teke in concrete, quite cute one. But I realized that the Muslim heritage was also in danger. So it's important to move in the countryside to see it, because you can think at the first sight that there is only new mosque, like built by the Turks or by the Saudi now, with like small panel, we build it. But in fact, if you have the time to see like quite hidden areas, abandoned villages, you see that there is this variety.
So in a way, I'm going to be very crude here. So one way it could work maybe is they take the old communist maps where the sites used to be, go there with a good drone with long range and battery and just go around, see, it's been destroyed. This one is, this one is okay. So just go around and see if they are there. And I'm making a joke, but it is true. With the help of technology, you don't need to walk yourself in every place. You can just go through a valley and see what's there, and then go physically. And in a way, make a new map of things. We are supposed to have some sort of, if not for real, at least some institutional decor.
Yes.
So
But I'm
at
a
least
very,
we know where things are, you know.
I'm a very analogic person, so I have to be personally in the places to like feel it and
Yes, of
to
course.
see with
They
my
would need
own
also
eyes.
to go personally there, but at least you can define if they are there with a drone. So
Yes.
they don't say, oh, but we don't have the per diems and the public money, etc. This need a tender to.
Yes.
Just go and see with a drone. You find where it is and you go physically there. It's
But I
beautiful.
still have some surprise because I thought that I saw almost all of the churches, but in fact not yet. I have still one, like the monastery of uncut. I have to go, but it's quite far away. And I discovered even yesterday I was making some research in the anthropological archives, like institute in Tirana, and I saw beautiful ancient pictures taken by Piero Tomo during the 70s, I
Piero
think.
Tomo?
Yes.
Piero Tomo, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
And I discovered through these photographies two, like not new churches, but new for me, in the extremely south part of the Drano Valley, a beautiful one. So I have good reason to come back during the next
That's
weeks.
good. We're going to see you again. It means.
Yes.
That's good. You lived in the Villa 31. So you stayed there, you slept there. Which room did you get?
I have a small room because I came a bit later, so the studio were already occupied.
Who was
But-
living there before the system
I
collapsed?
don't know. I have to see it. It's precise on the book published on the villa, so I could find it, but I
So
forget
maybe
it.
one of the sons or daughters of
Yes.
Enver and Nejmiya
I'm on the second floor.
on the second floor. Maybe yes, it most likely was sons of daughters. We were to Nejmiya's room when it was first opened for the public for artistic purposes, and we noticed that, if my memory doesn't betray me, that in Nejmiya's room there was this beautiful chimney made of polished marble.
Yes,
And as
there is like it's my favorite part of the villa are the fireplaces, like beautiful one.
as the rest of Albanians were struggling, they were having La Vita Bella.
Yes,
in a
for
way.
sure.
And part of your exhibition, it was reminded to me, that was also about the readings that Kamri Denver was accessing. So, as he was prohibiting religion for everybody in Albania, and especially literature that pondered around religion, himself, he was actually being quite liberal in his readings.
Yes, it was like it was quite a surprise for me to realize that in like symbolically I wanted to bring also these churches in the villa because like my subject is deeply connected with this history and with the politic of Enver Hoxha because they are abandoned because of this interdiction to go inside. So I wanted to understand the reasons of these politics. So a part of the personal library of Enver Hoxha is still in place in the first floor, in the current office of the Art Explorer team. And I was quite impressed to see like all these books in French. So it was a chance for me because it was easier to understand. And many of them were probably read also by Nejmiya because she was very connected with the Parisian literal scene during the 50s, 60s, with all these very famous French artists connected with the Communist Party. So probably it's not only the library of Enver Hoxha, but also of Nejmiya. We don't know exactly. But I had the idea to find only books against religion. And in fact, it was more complicated. I found many books, not against it, but on religion, like about it, about religious history, about the power of the religion against the state, when people use the religion as a force to fight for their liberty, so freedom. So it was very interesting for me to go deeply in this research. And I found also not only book about French Revolution, for example, because French Revolution was against the church, but I found many books about the Catholic counter-revolution in France, like when the Catholic part of the society, very Catholic one from the West France, decided to fight against the new republic. So I found also books on medieval Islam, and also because probably this connection between Islam and politics, like as a force on the population, perhaps. I found also novels about conversion history, but in a very positive way, like these books from Anatole France, Thaïs, speak about a very deeply spectacular conversion of a young, beautiful, depraved woman who became a saint because she's converted by a monk, and this monk finally is quite ambiguous because he fall in love with this woman he pretended to convert. So,
but she got converted for real and denounced the monk then?
And the monk finally died in terrible suffering because he realized that he didn't want to save this woman, but he just want to have sex with her. Like
very typical.
Yes,
it's a good feminist story also.
Yes, but it was very surprising for me because like my photographs were installed in the former room, like bedroom of Enver Hoxha, and it was kind of a play for me to install these books inside, to realize that in this room he was able to read something very religious. At the same time, he wanted to destroy every kind of religion in Albania. So
one question that even is a discussion, almost theological and philosophical, like how would God condemn certain people which do atrocities if they don't know the message of God? Why should they be culpable? In this case,
he was conscious.
He knew.
Yes,
he knew.
That's very impressive to see. Even in the architecture of the house, I think it's an interesting part because it's very beautiful. It's a house of chief state, but I had this impression that there is also an ideology behind. It's not so luxurious. There is marble, but not very impressive one. There is also many windows, but not for luxury, to pretend to be transparent to the society. And it's quite ironical because at the same time, people were not allowed to go in the quarter. But visually, from outside, perhaps for foreigners, there is this idea of transparency.
It's transparent. It's a transparent bunker, but you're not even allowed to look at it. So
and also, it's a very transparent
paradoxical.
But downstairs, there is also many tunnels. So with bunkers everywhere, but hidden. So
also, it's a funny way. It's even from old school psychology, psychoanalysis. You know, all the dungeons we have within ourselves and the dark parts and the unconscious of the regime, where this.
But thanks to this library, we can see that he was very conscious, and he was not against religion. He was afraid of it. I think that's why he wanted to destroy it. But it was quite very impressive to have this feeling of a sincerely project. He wanted really to do this, and just not to take advantage. Like when you see the palace of Ceausescu, you have the idea of, you think that okay, perhaps he wanted to destroy the society, but to take some advantage of it. And in Albania, it's more complicated, I think.
You're writing a book now about
I'm trying to
all these.
I'm trying to prepare a small publication for the end of my residency to mix my own captions of the photographs, the small description of the landscapes, of the places, and at the same time mix it with some poems from the library of Enver Hoxha and completely disconnect with this historical perspective, to also explain on one side that some culture is not only, it's impossible to reduce it as something bad, and at the same time that culture had, high culture had no influence of the politic of Enver Hoxha, and it's very like impressive, and I was afraid of it when I discovered this library, because I recognized many books I like from the like poetry from the 16th century in France, like books from Anna de Noailles, a very pacifist poetress from the 20th century in France, and in these poems I discovered also many texts very connected with what I'm doing here, like description of ruins. So for me it was a very strange feeling to find other artists who try at in different times to do the same in different contexts, and that's why I'm trying to connect it with my own work. And also I couldn't resist to choose some extract from Thaïs by Anatole France, because there is some beautiful declaration of love from the monk to Thaïs, and it was for me like quite of resonance with my love for Albania. So it was quite funny for me to try to express this link, because it's very difficult for me sometimes to explain why I'm working here, what I'm doing here. So thanks to literature, it's sometimes easier.
Well, chapeau. It's quite an immersion into many things, and how also you influenced with your work, with your, it's in a way, it has a semi-religious thing, this kind of passion, which actually then has an impact on the real world and makes it for the better, like these monuments that you contributed to be included in the watch list, and cooperation with institutions, which some of these churches now are being renovated. And that's really good. So it's wonderful. So I wish you all the best of luck with your
thank you very much.
Future
I hope it's only the beginning. Yes.
Because it is only the beginning, and you're only 29. So it's a good way to go. So bonne chance. What can I say?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wandrille Potez, thank you so much for being here.
Merci,
Thanks a
Ervin.
lot.